Okay, let's keep going, guys. Tonight's meeting is called to order. Mr. Kevin Milby will lead the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kevin. Mr. Joyce will lead a roll call to determine if we've got a quorum tonight.
Alderperson Hoppenjohn.
Here.
Tepley.
Here.
McCarthy. Here. Chambers. Walters.
Here.
Melby.
Here.
Downs. Here. Karen.
Here.
All right, you've got a quorum.
Thank you. Was this meeting properly noticed?
Yes, it was.
Thank you very much. Okay, next on tonight's agenda is the approval of the minutes. Once the council has had a moment to review, we'll be entertaining a motion to approve the minutes from the July 11th meeting and also the special session, which was July 18th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from July 11th and July 18th.
We have the motion from Karen Tepley. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Steve Downs. Any discussion of the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Please take a moment to review and we'll entertain a motion. One thing I am going to do, near the end of the agenda is public comment. I'm going to move that up tonight. I'm going to have that follow the presentation from the Richland Hospital. If there are any other changes, please let me know. Otherwise, entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Melby to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Melanie Walters. Any discussion of tonight's agenda? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. Agenda is approved. Next up is Mr. Bruce Raisler, our hospital administrator, with an informational presentation update on the Richland Hospital.
Good evening, everyone. Good to be with you all. I want to take a moment and thank our civic leaders for your service. I work with volunteer leaders myself, and I'm always grateful for people who are willing to step forward and serve our community. So I'm here this evening representing our local hospital and clinic. I'm also bringing with me the chair of our hospital board, Mr. John Anier. We're not here to ask for anything other than your general awareness and cooperation. This is for informational purposes. As you're aware, we are planning a facility replacement program. I have here a photo of our original hospital. This is the building that our forefathers moved into 99 years ago. So portions of our building are, in fact, well over 100 years. Interestingly enough, about 5 years ago, we had to do some remodeling that involved tearing down a wall interior to the building. And one of these windows here, we recognized as being inside that wall. So indeed, the existing facility has been built around and around the former Bailey Mansion. To this day that still exists. So we are going to be celebrating our centennial next year, 100 years, and beginning to make plans accordingly. I wanted to mention as well, like 99 years ago, our hospital continues to be an independent, locally governed, nonprofit organization. We think that is best for our community in the present time. I'll offer during the course of my career, I've worked in system-affiliated organizations and independent organizations. There are certainly advantages and disadvantages of each, but the clear advantage of being independent is that local leadership can decide how our hospital is operated, the types of decisions that are made about patient care, employment, and the like. And certainly our community has seen advantages of being able to make local decisions. And so we have a heady one coming up here about the future of our building. But first I thought I'd offer just a couple slides on some more context here. We believe that the Richland Hospital is the largest local employer by number of employees. We employ about 425 people at any given time, which represents last year about $30 million in payroll. We came by this information because we are applying in connection with our facility project for a USDA loan. And they asked for a considerable amount of information about our community. And so we called around everybody that we could think of, and we are on the top of that list. Our employees obviously are a big part of the local economy. Also, in a bit of new news, just very recently, we were made aware that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services have awarded us a 5-star rating on the Medicare.gov, a program they call Hospital Compare. This is a rating that's based on patient satisfaction surveys of all of our inpatients. And so we're really pleased with that. You might be interested to be aware, our little corner of the world here is actually populated by a lot of high-quality healthcare. This is a good thing for our state, good thing for our region, but many of our neighbors are similarly either 4 or 5 stars. That's a good thing for Wisconsin and for all of us. So on to our program here. I really want to impress upon everybody this first slide here, the why rebuild, and how did we come to this? Back in 2018, our board of directors commissioned a study that was called a Master Facilities Plan, and we engaged Taylor Slater Architects out of Madison to conduct a study of our current facility, stem to stern, and how is it that we can make it better, sustain it, adjust it to our purposes. And we learned at that time that they estimated roughly $22 million in improvements could be made at that time. A lot of them were, I'll say, design features that needed correction, and some of them were also infrastructure, building systems that were approaching their expected useful life. Mechanical things wear out over time, and so they pointed to these two things 5 years ago, and so we're estimating greater than $30 million in cost today. We haven't taken any scientific approach to update that number from 2018, but we're certainly aware that like a lot of things in life, inflation has really hit hard in the building program area and mechanical system. So, and again, that was to address both infrastructure issues and what we call design issues. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment here. So this is our timeline of where we've been. It starts, if you can't read that, back in 2018 when we got this master facility study result. Our board of directors contemplated, do we put the tens of millions of dollars into our existing facility, or might this be an opportunity to step back and contemplate starting over? And I think given that our building over nearly 100 years has been added on to something like 9 times, we think, and consider, if you will, the implications of that. Like the sewer and water systems that ran under the building are still there from that, and we don't know exactly their condition they're in. And every time that you add on to a building, you're not necessarily extending its life, you're making adjustments to make it work better in the present system. Anyway, so we've been at this since 2018, and so depending on your perspective, this is something that is taking a really long time to get done, or how come you're in such a hurry? Because it seems like a lot of people haven't had this awareness that our board has indeed been working on this for over 5 years. The timeline includes some time in the future yet. We're in the midst of doing this feasibility study and applying for the USDA loan that will be the backbone of how this gets financed. If we get a favorable USDA response and many other things fall into place, it's possible, under the best of conditions, that we would have a groundbreaking for a new facility sometime next spring. I do want to emphasize a lot of things have to fall into place to make that a reality, but we're making good progress. Some of that progress includes engaging a lot of professional technical guidance. We have a project management firm that we've engaged called Medcraft. We use Verbicker Engineering. Some of you are familiar with them. They've done a lot of civil engineering work with us so far, but they will be the engineering for the hospital as we design it. BWBR is an architecture firm. They're based in St. Paul. They have office in Madison. We work with both of those offices. Lumint is a financial advisory firm. There's a large cost to this, so we have to pull together various elements for the financing. The USDA, I've mentioned, in Whipley is our audit firm, and also they are consulting with us on the feasibility study. So a lot of brainpower has been applied against what we're trying to do here. In the end, we expect that our new facility will expand our emergency department, our rehab department, and our surgical services capability. We will continue to offer obstetrics labor and delivery program. If you're not aware, that is a service that rural hospitals are really struggling to maintain. It's a service that rural hospitals in particular, being low volume, lose considerable money operating because it is low volume and litigious at times, and you have a lot of standby costs, because you have to be able to deliver a baby at a moment's notice, or perhaps do a C-section. In any case, our planning anticipates continuing to offer OB, improve patient wayfinding. Obviously, our building is a bit of a maze today. Update in technology, we're really excited about that. More efficiency and flexibility in how our building is operated, particularly allowing for future expansion. We know that over the lifetime of a building, be it 50, 75, whatever years, there will be modifications that become necessary. We want to plan for that inevitability. We want to make sure that the building's easy to maintain. For instance, today, our building is heated by a high-pressure boiler steam system, and it's outdated, and if we went to a hot water system, it's a different kind of maintenance mechanical skill that would be called upon. So we're looking for that type of thing that is going to be easier to maintain. And then, naturally enough, support staff, recruitment and retention. That is a feature that other hospitals have learned, that a replacement process comes about, and it helps to attract and retain workforce, and in this era, that's a very important consideration. So in our current state, we just have completed very recently a feasibility study. That's part of our application to the USDA. We're imagining a budget of $115 million. We come to that by looking at a couple things. Just like a homeowner considering, or let me say, somebody anticipating buying a home when they're approaching a mortgage. How much money do you have in the bank for a down payment? And what's your future income? and we'll tell you what kind of mortgage you can afford. Well, we can afford a roughly $80 million mortgage. We have internal resources saved, previous financial performance of about $20 million. And then we're looking to garner federal, state, local contributions of about $15 million. It's important for our community to be aware. We think we are, in a manner of speaking, maxing out our credit card here. This is the most that we can prudently afford today, and to be able to pay back into the future. That's part of this feasibility study that looked at demographics of our area and trends in healthcare utilization and future costs, etc. So it's all been baked in that this is the amount of house, if you will, that we can afford with our mortgage. So using our architects, BWBR, and our project management firm, we've been engaged for several months in a process that involves a lot of staff members, a lot of community members. In fact, we've surveyed a lot of people. There's been meeting upon meeting of discerning what's important to individual hospital departments, and then how the departments relate to one another. We are going on our 6th workshop with architects next week. A workshop is basically a 3-day meeting. So it's a rather intensive process where we're really trying to maximize the value of our investment. But staff input is very important to that process. The design principles, we want to come up with something that reflects the greater Richland area character, that is focused on both patient and staff experience and engagement, that is something that's future-oriented, supports our staff in continuing to provide the first-rate care, such as we have been providing, that it's sustainable in every sense of that word. It's financially sustainable, that it is energy efficient and the like, and very importantly, affordable. And this has been another key theme in all of our meetings is believe me, our board and our management team are very keen on being fiscally responsible with the healthcare dollars that come to our organization. We want to do this in the right way that is affordable and sustainable. This diagram is one that is, I'll say it's not accurate any longer, because it was a result of our 5th workshop a few weeks ago, and but it kind of gives you the sense of where we are. This is what architects would call a schematic design or a bubble diagram. So we're beginning to have a sense of where the various departments are landing in the hospital relative to one another, how big they are, that type of thing. So this happens to be the design for the 1st floor. It's a 2-story building. There is no basement. Just to tell you here, this is the front entrance here that faces Highway 14 out this direction, and the bike trail is behind us here. This space over to this side is all clinic. This is the rehab department, the emergency, imaging lab, and then the patient rooms and the surgery department are the main occupants of the 2nd floor. So there's a lot of detail that needs to be worked out yet behind all of this, but these are the general concepts, just to give you a sense of where things are falling into place here. And then, with some reluctance, I'll share what one potential artist rendition of our exterior looks like. This is facing the front, where there's a canopy, and it's going to be a very attractive building right at the front entrance, if you will, of our community coming from the east. It's going to take what kind of was an eyesore area, I think, and make it a real asset, something that our community is going to be very proud of. So, just one more slide, and then I'd be happy to take any questions you might have. To reiterate, our board, over a period of 5 years, mind you, has determined that taking this move and doing the replacement facility is a fiscally prudent thing. That rather than pour tens of millions of dollars into the existing facility and really not being able to address all of its shortcomings, be it infrastructure, and I realize I didn't get into a lot of detail there, but boiler systems and the chilling plant and the emergency generator and air handling units and medical gas systems and other components that go into a hospital. It's just better in the long run to start over, get a clean platform. It's going to be better for us fiscally. We want to emphasize that this is a plan that our internal leaders and board and staff are all working together. We are really challenged. $115 million sounds like an enormous amount of money, and it is. But it's not enough in many respects. Construction costs have gone up substantially in the last 5 years. What we could do with another 10 or $20 million to make this an even better facility, I could name many things, but that's not going to happen. We are going to be we are limited by that 115 million figure. We get questions about services. Although our building will have a somewhat smaller footprint than our current one, we're going to be using the space more efficiently. And in spite of that, there will be no reduction in any services whatsoever. Everything that we do today, we will continue to be doing. And very importantly, we want to acknowledge that we really will need to work with the city through this process. Hospitals need water and sewer, and we're imagining an annexation process eventually here. Not to mention electric utility. We're working together on a federal grant that would help bring that to fruition. In summary, I guess, the city, and of course, but our community writ large. The Richland Hospital and Clinics is a nonprofit corporation. We belong to the community. We belong to all of you. And so we want to make sure that we're being transparent and that we're engaging everybody and incorporating the best ideas of how to get the most out of this investment, which in the end is going to serve our community for generations to come. So thank you for your time. I'd be pleased to take any questions that council may have.
Questions for Mr. Riesler? Bruce, I believe from our conversations that I guess I would use the term the lion's share of funding, it would be coming from, I believe the right term is a USDA loan.
That's correct.
And what's the time frame to know if that's a go for this year?
A USDA application is an iterative process. And we've been working formally with the USDA since late May. We've submitted our final application, or let me say what we think is a complete application. The next couple weeks, there's a dialogue about answering questions and perhaps modifying that application. We believe that by or around September 1st, about a month away, we'll know whether the USDA loan is going to be approved and for what amount. The USDA likes to max out, as my number suggests, at around 70% of the project cost. They want skin in the game from other commercial lenders, the community, and so they want to be the lender of last resort. They're a big piece of the financing, but not the whole piece. That's why even when we cross this hurdle, we still have ways to go.
Okay, and then you mentioned correctly that the city has applied for a federal appropriation, which would be used to help put utility hookups onto that land, and that's because the parcel of property that the hospital has purchased, Bruce mentioned that there will be discussion of annexation. It's not in the city. It's next to the city, therefore city utilities do not exist there. It's very expensive to put that there. So to answer a question I get asked a lot, no conversation has been had at all by myself or anyone up here that would involve raising property taxes or using tax levy dollars to pay for this, nor has anyone representing the hospital come to ask me to do so. Okay, to be fair, that has not happened. That gets, people ask me how the city's going to pay for the hospital. The city's not paying for the hospital. Okay, the only funds we've been asked to try to help get would be a federal appropriation, a grant. That Senator Baldwin and her staff, and also Mr. Van Orden and his staff have worked very hard. That, by the way, is what we call bipartisan cooperation, which we are getting on this project. Okay, and then I believe if the money lines up and you don't get a delay in any of the other processes, the intent is to break ground in April?
Approximately April, yes.
Well, so, yeah.
I'm going to leave some weasel words because I am an administrator, a bureaucrat.
That was well said. Okay, and then what is it? Okay, now I understand. We have a Dunkin' Donuts opening soon that is now almost 8 months past due because a simple electrical panel could not be obtained.
Yeah.
So I know what it's like trying to build anything right now. So I know you could hit delays, but the projected build time is about 18 months?
That is correct, about a year and a half. And so a year and a half after groundbreaking, we cut a ribbon. And then hospitals typically take 2 to 3 months to move. And some of the equipment we have will come with us. And in effect, the way hospitals operate, there is a moment in time when you're operating 2 hospitals. And so some equipment needs to remain behind. It will be put on the second-hand market eventually. So anyway, 60 to 90 days after declared complete, and we will have trained our staff in how to operate in the new facility, we will go live. So January 1, 26.
Mr. Perry got that on camera, Mr. Racer.
You saw the shrug of the shoulders, and it's an educated best guess.
Okay, any other questions or comments for Mr. Raisler? There is one in the, out here, Bruce.
What's going to happen to the old building?
That is a common question. Our board of directors has not really considered the issue much at all. This is taking all of our energy. So what I'm about to say is maybe my personal observation and opinions, and which means it's not official. Over the course of my long career in hospital administration, I've seen facilities get replaced, and it's relatively uncommon that they get repurposed. They're built to be a hospital. They don't do, it's hard to transform them into something else. That and the fact that really the reason for our program here is to escape investing tens of millions of dollars in building systems means somebody else would have to take that on, at least some of it. Maybe they don't need it to the same standards as a hospital would, but so there's a substantial likelihood, in my opinion, that this building eventually would be demolished. And insofar as it's in a residential neighborhood, the space would probably revert to residential purposes eventually.
Okay, anything further for Bruce Raisler?
I have a question. How this new building is going to cost $115 million? How will that raise the price of services for the people coming in?
In fact, in our feasibility study, there aren't any price increases that are assumed into the analysis. I'll say a couple comments that to amplify that. A substantial portion of the revenue that operates the Richland Hospital comes from the Medicare program. And the Medicare program pays us largely based on our cost of operating, but not at all on our prices. Similarly, we have a number of contracts with insurance companies, Corpson, Dean, Healthcare, and the like. In the current era, insurance companies don't much care what a hospital charges for services either. And so if the hospital is to raise revenue, what our sole path forward is to serve more people. And I'm very familiar with a number of studies, business case studies that have been done over the years that look at this issue of replacement hospitals in rural settings. And it's relatively common, though not always the case, that new hospitals become busier, that people who had sought their care elsewhere, and we have that locally, that they decide to use the new hospital. And so that would be a portion of how we pay back our mortgage, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Raisler.
Very good to be with you.
All right. Okay, next on tonight's agenda will be public comment, and I know there are a few of you here tonight. Usually I get one, but tonight I have 6, all on the same topic. So what we're going to do is remind everyone that no action will be taken on anything that's discussed tonight, which means it's not on tonight's agenda, so we'll hear you, but don't expect a vote. That's not how that works. Here tonight, and I'm going to ask everyone, I know there's a lot of emotion, that's usually what makes people take action. Please remain civil, that's a must. If you don't, you'll be stopped. Everybody gets 2 minutes to speak. Okay, first in the stack, I have Jackie. We have a microphone.
Well, technically, the baiting, trapping, and drowning of squirrels is legal per DNR and no city ordinance. Besides the act itself, my issues are as follows. The total disregard to all the children in the neighborhood. There are 13 children that live in this one block area. The trap is placed right on the boulevard of the lawn. Everyone walking and driving by can see it. The disposal of carcasses. They are being thrown directly into the trash bin. My understanding is that you cannot throw dead animals into the trash. This individual was confronted by a concerned parent regarding his concerns in the events that were taking place. Suggested perhaps the traps be moved to his backyard. The response was to tell the kids who live 2 houses down to walk and play somewhere else. Later that evening, I was hand-delivered a letter to give to said concerned parent. While being informative, it basically said, I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. And I quote, I expect this to be the last time I am approached by anyone in the neighborhood or anyone else for that matter about this issue. I won't hesitate to bring my attorneys or others such as landlords or the RCPD into the loop if problems continue. Lastly, I would encourage those who disagree with the current state laws to work with the DNR and state representatives, follow the democratic process, and take active steps to change them. So that is what I propose we do. Let's get a city ordinance prohibiting the baiting, trapping, drowning, and disposal of squirrels in the city limits, and also get the DNR to eliminate drowning as an acceptable method of killing. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jackie. Next we have Jane Kintz.
Probably don't really need it. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I also want to speak on that subject. I didn't know anything about the baiting and trapping and killing of these squirrels until a few days ago, I guess. I'm an animal person. I know a lot of you are. It seems to be very cruel to me to be able to do that. I understand that no law is broken by drowning the squirrels, but think about drowning. And they are living beings. They can't read a sign that you would put in your yard saying no squirrels allowed. They just are squirrels. They just travel around. They do their thing. There seems to be a big, you're for that or you're against it. But what if we could come up with a solution where both parties win? And last night I was here for a meeting, a different meeting, of course, and one of the council members had what I think is a good solution, and I had asked about that before, and that is rehoming the squirrels. Why kill them? I live in the country. I would be happy to pick these squirrels up that are caught in the live traps now and find a new home for them. They can come to my farm. I mean, they aren't going to hurt anything out there. And I have a few squirrels in my yard, which I enjoy. They aren't hurting my property. But because I have the farm and creeks and water sources and food sources for squirrels, several of my friends have said they would help too. So I would like to propose that that happen. I taught elementary art for years. I know about little children and their feelings and my feelings growing up about animals. It's got to be really hurting them, these kids in the neighborhood, to know what's happening and see it. So I think we have to think about that also. And also, as city council members, is it really the thing that you'd like to have happen in Richland Center? Even though it's legal by DNR standards, is it cruel, or is it something that we want to have happen in our city? I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jane. Next, we have Mr. Rod Perry.
Yes, this is happening in my neighborhood, and I'd just like to say that if you don't live there, you don't know the problem. We have squirrels coming out our ears. Now, if you look up squirrel, which I just did earlier in the meeting, the word under squirrel is rodent, and that's what they are, rodents. You kill mice, you kill rats, and in my neighborhood, maybe you kill squirrels. We haven't, but we've had so many of them. And they mess with the flower gardens, and they chew on my deck, and they chew on the knobs of my gas grill. I mean, they are a nuisance, and something needs to be done. Now, the other thing that isn't being said here is the treatment that Mr. Tober has gotten on the social media, where lies have been told, names have been called, threats have been made. It's not right.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. We have Mr. Tom Everson. Did I pronounce your last name right?
Yeah, good.
All right.
Just to get rid of any biases, I live in between the two houses. There is a lot of squirrel problems. There's also a lot of feral cats, skunks, and I know we resorted to shooting whitetails at night. I believe it. We went there yet? Sharpshooting whitetails because of botanical issues, gardens and shrubs being eaten in town. We did. So I'm just saying, this is not a new thing for Richland Center. The gentleman that's being addressed has a beautiful garden, a lot of money in plants. I personally know, I've lived there since 2013 next door. The attic's been chewed up, wiring issues. We've all had squirrel damage. Piggybacking on the topic of social media, I think it got to doxing, I think it got way too far. You guys, I moved out last Monday. Everybody's gonna be neighbors after this, so I hope it gets resolved, and then it's civil discourse after this. So, thank you.
Each time Katrina. Is it Honer?
Owner, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So, I think we all need to open our eyes and acknowledge that we are living amongst a man who thinks he has the right to lure, trap, and slowly and painfully kill living creatures, all because he believes they are ruining his materialistic items. He seems to think that taking this into his own hands and killing these animals will solve his problem. This has been ongoing and steadily escalating, and I am here today to ask for your help in stopping the baiting and inhumane euthanasia of defenseless animals within city limits. We are lucky to have a diverse mammal population here in rural Wisconsin, and I don't believe that any of us were actually put in charge of controlling it. This cruel act is done on a regular basis, right out in the open, and my neighbor takes pride in killing the wildlife population in our community. I can only explain his behavior as something sadistic that you would see in a movie. It can't be explained.
Crying and sadistic? I don't think so. Sorry.
I don't think it's your turn to talk. Unfortunately, my children and I live very in close proximity to where this happens. How am I supposed to explain these acts to my very impressionable boys who are very aware and can see what is going on? We just took hunter safety class, and ethical hunting is a major focus. The fact that these acts and hunting have been used in the same thought process, paragraph, or even breath is offensive. There are multiple studies where children who have witnessed animal cruelty were studied. They were found to have negative effects on memory, feelings of helplessness later in life, increased violence against other people, including committing future acts of child abuse. It has also been found that children who witness animal cruelty tend to do poorly in school, have low self-esteem, and few friends. In the handful of studies that I read, I found that the children experience trauma now and into their adult lives. My neighbor is well aware that there are 13 children within the direct vicinity of where he commits these acts. 3 of them are mine. 13 children that could potentially or currently be experiencing the negative effects of this man's behavior, and it may very well linger on forever. Again, I'm here to ask for the help in taking action with this issue. I suggest that a temporary solution of the relocation of trapped animals be put in place until an ordinance to stop the baiting and killing of wildlife within city limits is passed. Thank
Okay,
you.
time. You hit it right on the head. All right, Mr. Robert Tober.
I'm sorry that offended anybody that's in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of libel and lies that have taken place. What people don't realize is that I have tried everything to take care of the squirrel problem. I have tried flashing, netting, fencing, buying super hot cayenne pepper, garlic, onion, crushed red pepper, everything to possibly deter them, and nothing works. 2 years ago, when I had approached the neighbors who were encouraging wild animals, the proliferation of them, I asked them to please not feed them anymore. They still continue. 2 years ago, with the help of another neighbor, I had trapped some squirrels and they were released. But I read by a number of different groups that state that 97% of relocated squirrels to the country end up passing due to starvation, a slow and painful death. So I've had damage to my attic. I've had many things that have happened. On this Facebook page, and another thing, the trap is on the front yard. It was on the boulevard because they're often on the boulevard trees, and it's been in my front yard. Anything else that's occurred has happened in my backyard out of public view. So I can understand that maybe children are upset, but what do you explain to them in the fall when you have hunting and you have deer carcasses splayed all over people's trucks, trailers? Do you say this is a way of Wisconsin life, it's animal population control, or do you villainize somebody for being a hunter? I don't hunt. I have nothing against people that do hunt. This is no different than the city of Richland Center sharpshooting deer, which is what I've heard, to population control them from people hitting them in their cars or causing damage to yards. So on Facebook, things were said that by Ms. Honer, I have copies of everything that's going to my attorney for slander.
Robert, that's not what we're here for, sir.
Okay, that's the facts.
It's not what
They
we're
were
here
saying-
for, sir.
Okay, they were saying that I was drowning cats. They were saying that I had forged a letter from Dave Fry, who I didn't even know. Another was harassing disabled people, which is not true. And the comments that have persisted, I mean, putting my address and my photo of my house, just walk by there, there's traps, he captures squirrels and drowns them and threatened to do the same to cats. There was a problem with feral cats being fed and my neighbors letting their cats run. So I suggest a really good idea, instead of trying to pass an ordinance that will not stand, the state will overturn it. I have documentation on that. Other communities have tried this. Maybe focus on controlling feral cats and feeding wild animals and letting your cats run. There's already an ordinance for dogs. Cats should be added. I don't like them coming into my yard, pooping, urinating, catching wild birds, killing other animals.
Okay, that's time.
Yeah, I can't get it all in, but
Okay, thanks.
yep, no problem.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
We ran out of sheets.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go ahead. Would you please just introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Brian Kroll, new to town in October, moved here on 398 East 5th Street. There's current construction on 5th Street by the dentist's office. There's a small, maybe 100-foot gravel street that is not being paved. The remainder of the street is being paved. And so I guess I'm asking the board to consider paving or adding it to the agenda. One of my neighbors, Butch, was here, I think, a couple times, and I guess there's only 3 houses that are really affected, but I guess I'm hoping the board to consider if they live there and wanted to build a garage and pave their street, if they would, if the gravel street wasn't paved, and, you know, pay the same taxes. The mailman drives his car along and puts the mailbox on the gravel street. So I guess that's my hope, is just to consider if you guys lived on that corner and you saw construction and they just stopped right before paving the remainder of the street. Just seems like an inefficient way. If to ever pave the street, this would be the time. So I guess I'm hoping just to consider that, and I'll be coming back if needed. Thanks.
Brian, stick around. All right, I believe that's everybody. I think we've got one more hand up over here.
I'd ask you to allow me to remain seated if I could.
Yeah,
My name
that's
is
no
Chuck Aber, and in addition to what Brian Kroll has to say, I'm one of the 10 petitioners that submitted a petition to the city to add the paving of East 5th Street to the current project that's going on over 7th, 8th, and Cedar Street, and the only paving part of East 5th Street. I've provided a good deal of information which shows that that property was transferred by Everett McCollum in 1960 to the city by deed for $1 for the purpose of a city street. And I've been given a lot of information that seems to be contrary to what I'm finding out from the Department of Transportation and from others. And I find that there's a few roadblocks in the way, and I believe I've knocked most of those down. The State Department of Transportation has informed me that the City of Richland Center could go ahead in one meeting and declare that a street and declare to pave it. And the city owns the street themselves, so they could grant their own variances to the fact that that 30-foot wide by 135-foot strip could be paved in addition to this project. Question came up as to how would that be paid for, and the project I just mentioned, the city's budget for that portion of the project was $240,000. The bid came in $8,913 less than that. Someone from the city asked Gasser Paving to contact me and measure that area and give a bid to the city for blacktopping that area. They gave two options. One of them exceeded the budget savings that you incurred. The other one is slightly more than the budget savings you incurred. And I would ask that you take that money and extend this project. Gasser's further informed me that if you choose to do this after their bid date, which is next Sunday, the 6th of August, the cost of doing that at a later date, even up to November of this year for their calendar year of work, would be about 35% higher. They're going to have to charge you $1,500 to bring a pavement crew in, and they're going to have to purchase the aggregate asphalt in a small batch as opposed to adding it to this project here. And all I can say is I've been to 2 public works meetings, and this is my first one with the council because I was directed to go to public works first. It's never been on the agenda. I'm always told it's not in the budget. We can't vote on it because it's not on the agenda. And I guess what I'm going to say is you about fumbled me for about 2 months here and gave no answer to that question. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chuck. All right, anyone else for public comment? Okay. Next on our agenda, City and Utility Department Head reports and concerns. Mr. Jason Glassbrenner.
I'm gonna pass, we've got agenda items later in the meeting.
What was that? Say that again.
I'll pass, Mr. Mayor, I've got agenda items later in the meeting.
Yes, you do. Mr. Aaron Joyce.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Ashley Oliphant.
I'm just going to announce that Mike Harlan, who has been with the city since 1999, is retiring as of Friday. So I would like to thank Mike for his many years of service. And in mid-July, the Department, Public Works, they've hired a new crew member, Jason Coe, to join them. So he's got a couple weeks under his belt, and we're still finishing the application and interview process for the remaining crew member position right now. That is all.
Thank you. I don't see any other department heads in the room tonight. Move forward, Mayor and Alderpersons, Committee, Commission, Board reports and comments or items for future meetings. Connie Hoppenjohn. Help her out, Karen. What would you say if you were...
Nothing tonight.
There you go. Meet our newest Alderperson, Connie Hoppenjohn. Okay, Karen Tepley.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things from the library board. We are going to be, our library director, and so we are going to be doing a search for a new library director. The first meeting is scheduled for August 4th, so we will be proceeding with that. Several other things from the library I believe I reported on last time, but programming has been going great. Children's programming is way up, and so is circulation. Thank you.
Mr. Tom McCarthy.
Nothing to report tonight.
Melanie Walters.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kevin Melby.
Nothing tonight.
Right, Steve Downs.
Nothing tonight, Mayor.
Mr. Ryan Cairns.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, I thank you. I do have something. It's actually the same topic that Brian and Chuck spoke on, which is the section at the end of 5th Street, which, just to kind of clarify a little bit, is not part of the street, was never declared part of the street. And Chuck pointed out, he called the DOT and he told him the city could do that, which the city could do. real quick background, the reason I'm bringing it up myself, there was not, Mr. Kroll's house was moved in 1997. It wasn't originally located there. It actually moved the last time the hospital did construction. And I believe at the time Chuck was the hospital CFO. And they moved that house back in there because it was either that or lose the house. It seems a shame. So on the quick, the city council said, well, that works, but street back there. So they agreed at the time, the city council agreed at the time to put gravel down back there and to maintain that gravel through the years and plow it, but did not make it part of the street. And therefore it is not, which makes just a weird set of circumstances. So what I did is I've sat in Chuck's home, we talked this through, Brian and I talked about it on the phone. And yesterday at the city department head meeting, I brought it up because we had all of our utility department heads there, water, sewer, and electric, because I know they want some storm sewer and street work up in that area over the next few years, 5th Street, 4th Street, kind of down from where we are now and down 4th Street. So I brought it up because I know they're aware of it, and I said, if this gets paved, however that is, if this becomes paved, what does that look like? And they said, if you do it, don't do it right now because we're going to tear it up when we do the storm sewer stuff in the next couple of years. Well, I didn't know, the city, both the city when we do our budget later this year and then the utility commission when they're looking at their next few years of projects, this is about to be scheduled. I don't know what year it will get done. It's just another wrinkle in the story, but I guess what Todd Fisher from City Sewer recommended, he said he's not opposed to it being paved at some point. He recommended not to do it now because they're going to tear through the pavement when they put storm sewer upgrades back down through there. So I think what this needs to do, for one thing, this needs to be, the utility commission needs to be talking about what they're going to do and when, so we can advise and then get a path forward. Is it best to leave it? Is it best to make it part of a city street? Might it be best, it's just, this hasn't even been discussed, but just shooting ideas out. If that was privately owned back there, what's the answer? Don't have the answer. Agree that it would be great if we could find a solution other than what they're now, but what's the right path forward? So I'm just kind of putting it out there. There's a lot of information coming out from different sources in here. The council made a decision in '97, which has remained in place all of these years. I understand why the folks living over there would say, well, just do it now while the pavers are here. And then sewer says, don't do it now because we're going to tear it up if you do. So I'm hoping that Brian and Chuck will continue to discuss this with myself, and I'm going to introduce into it city utilities so we can get these things scheduled. You guys have all the timeline of when this will be done, and we can find a solution. Okay? And Brian, is your wife here tonight? She's not here. Okay, for anybody who doesn't know, Brian Kroll is actually Dr. Brian Kroll from the Richland Hospital, correct? Mm-hmm. When did you folks relocate to Richland Center?
October last year.
Welcome to Richland Center. Sorry about this weird wrinkle. Glad to have you here. Your wife's actually my wife's doctor, so she told me to be very kind to you. Yeah. All right, so that's what's going on, and we'll just have to keep working through this so we get it resolved, because what I don't want, no matter who's spending the money, I don't want fresh pavement down and torn apart and redone. I want to find out exactly when that's going to, all that work goes on, and then is it possible to tie this in there, and what's the right solution? And since I've got you both here, I thought we'd go over it now. Okay, next on the agenda is the treasurer's report. Mr. Aaron Joyce.
All right. This is the treasurer's report for the period ending July 31st, 2023. City General had an ending balance of $402,866. State Pool number 1 had an ending balance of $4,357,030. Let's see, our State Pool number 6 had an ending balance of $137,119. Some other accounts with activity library, ending balance of $346,368. And then Greater Richland Tourism, they had an ending balance of $22,986. Any questions?
Questions for Mr. Joyce? Hearing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report.
Motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Melby, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Downs. Discussion of the treasurer's report. Hearing none, let's have a roll call, please.
Alderperson Tepley?
Aye.
McCarthy?
Aye.
Walters?
Aye.
Melby?
Aye.
Downs?
Aye.
Cairns?
Aye.
Papajohn?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, payment of the bills. While the council reviews those bills. Bills presented on this day, excluding any library fund invoices having been referred to the Finance and Budget Committee, and said committee having duly investigated and audited these bills, hereby make the following recommendation: that the city bills presented on this day be paid with the following adjustments and/or exceptions. There are none listed. It is signed by all three members of the Finance Committee. The council has reviewed the bills. Will entertain a motion to pay them.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Motion from Ms. Tepley, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. McCarthy. Discussion of the bills. Hearing none, hearing none, we'll have a roll call. Mr. Joyce.
Alderperson McCarthy?
Aye.
Walters?
Aye.
Melby?
Aye.
Downs?
Aye.
Cairns?
Aye.
Papajohn?
Aye.
Tepley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, next on the agenda, items for discussion and action. Item 5 is update on housing development efforts. I'll start with Mr. Glassburner on this.
All right, so we thought we would give a rundown, since housing is always a hot topic here in Richland Center. We've been talking about it for years, and so we wanted to kind of do a rundown for the public to let them know what we've been working on. So item number 1 here is shortage of housing of all types. The 2019 Richland Center Housing and Workforce Study outlined a growing need for housing of all types. This has been evidenced by numerous anecdotal reports from local employers, general public, and even personal accounts from staff. The housing challenges affecting Richland Center have been exacerbated by changing workforce trends. Early on, I began in economic development in April of 2020, and as well as I've been re-employed by the city because there was a change in my employment, but as of April 23, when the economic development transitioned to full city employment, it was apparent that housing was a critical issue warranting prioritization. It's been since day one in economic development. In 2023, the Personnel and Insurance Committee outlined the priorities of the Economic Development Director as follows: housing, workforce retention and attraction, and quality of life elements. Those are the exact same elements that were identified by the Richland Economic Development Board. That was a collaboration between the city and the county. Housing types pursued by Richland Center Economic Development include single-family homes, multifamily units on infill lots, duplex dwellings on Storyfield and other city-owned parcels, and apartment complexes on private and city-owned parcels. We're going to give you a brief summary of Panorama Estates. That's one development that the public is well aware of. But through the partnership with the city, a development agreement was executed securing the construction of 3 45-unit apartment buildings over 15 years. The development agreement on that was for 1918, so that predates my employment here, and probably predates most of the people on the council. There was a TIF district established, and building 1 you can see in column 1 here is completed and in compliance, was occupied around 12/18 or 12/1 of 18. There was an agreement for 50% of infrastructure costs to be supported by the municipality. So there was a $750,000 general obligation bond issued, and the city's principal and interest you can see there, and the developer's principal and interest. The rent, there was a rent increase in 2023 to approximately $1,200 to $1,400 for the tenants at Panorama Estates. There was indication that roughly it affected 5 tenants to the point where they were no longer willing to stay there, but all indications are that the building is refilled. Building 2 which was supposed to be ready for occupancy in April of this year, has not been constructed. The city took steps to amend the TIF district, which is a financial mechanism that the city has to help incentivize development when it's not happening on its own. And the city financial advisor that we use to validate construction costs and processes cautioned against fulfilling the requested incentives. So the developer came and said, well, we need roughly a couple $1 million to help get this project going, and the advisor at that point said, well, we're cautioning you on that. The developer has been unsuccessful to date in securing the financing necessary to construct the building. Approximate costs or projected costs on that building are close to $8 million now, whereas the first building started, it was closer to 4.5. The city has aggressively pursued advancement of this project for 2 years without success. It's been a constant element for my office, the administrator, the mayor, the council, planning commission. We've all been working hard. The developer's been trying to advance the project. The developer has indicated a desire to extend the prescribed timeline, but has not formally issued this request. And we have a remedy here that we'd ask the council to consider at the end of this synopsis, that they would consider requesting a developer appear before the council on September 5th to formally propose it and discuss remedies and possibly that extension. There is in the contract Building 3, and Building 3 completion date was clear out into the future, 4/15 of 2033. Multifamily housing has also been considered on numerous other locations throughout the city. Sites of 1.5 acres or greater. City personnel and elected officials have engaged with several developers and professional service firms to pursue multifamily housing development. Various sites have been considered, such as privately owned land as well as city-owned land. Most recently considered was the city-owned parcel at the corner of County Trunk AA and Industrial Drive. That particular location is out there, if you're not familiar, in the new industrial park, kind of out beyond the fairgrounds. Development obstacles, of course, for Richland Center and Richland County in general are topography, construction costs, and interest rates have continued to rise. Increased development costs have created a greater reliance on municipalities to offset the funding gap. All major development projects reviewed by the city have required significantly more financial assistance than historically necessary. The trend 20 years ago was that a developer would come in and they would receive nothing. No support, financial support. That has consistently changed, especially over the last 10 to 15 years, to the point where communities that are growing are investing more and more and more to attract developers into their community to provide the housing that's necessary for population expansion. So without municipal participation, it's unlikely that multifamily housing development will occur in the foreseeable future. We also worked on duplex housing development at Story Field. The Common Council determined a duplex housing development on Story Field should be pursued. We worked on conceptual planning. Verbecker Engineering was hired to conduct conceptual planning for the Story Field. The expected infrastructure cost using 2022 figures was $700,000. I would anticipate that that number has increased now at this point by 10 to 15% at least. RFP so a request for proposal was published seeking developers. So we had the engineering firm assist us in reaching out into their network. We did our best to reach out in our networks, and we had no one that was willing to provide a proposal for the development of Story Field. Public meetings, we had open houses that were conducted, and meetings were held offering the public opportunities to learn more and ask questions regarding the potential development. Due to the lack of interest from developers, it may be necessary to consider alternative development options, single-family homes, ? So one of the ideas that's been circulating a little bit is the possibility of doing smaller footprint homes so that the investment from an individual isn't as much as if you build a duplex. So just using rough numbers, a duplex nicely done at 1,500 square foot a side could cost between, $500,000 to $600,000. There's been one on the market here in town for around $600,000 that fits that description. So that's a very limited market. There aren't a lot of people that are able to do that. I know I wouldn't want to. So
we would look at maybe could we do a smaller footprint home that would be accessible and more people in the financial environment that here at Richland Center, they can access those. So that's the reason for the thought process. We've also been working on infill housing on city-owned lots. The two primary projects are 460 West First Street and 291 North Jefferson Street. These are both projects that arose out of a partnership with Richland County. They're properties that were on the tax roll and had significant amount of back taxes, and the houses were considered blighted. So they were dangerous to the community. 460 West First Street, we're going to talk about a little bit more tonight. We listed them in the paper in April of 2023. They've been on the website. I've had numerous conversations regarding both lots. And 460 West First would involve a single-family home or a duplex, narrow lot line duplex. 291 North Jefferson is a commercial lot that could support a duplex, a fourplex, or a mixed commercial use. Financial planning. In July of 2023, the Common Council determined professional financial planning services should be obtained to review the city's current position and to provide strategic planning for all types of future development. Several firms have since been contacted to request service proposals. Items discussed to be included: overall financial position of the city as a whole, capital improvement planning, tax incremental district planning, short and long-term goals and projects, education related to available financial tools, and policy establishment. In addition to city departments, utility departments are to be included in this process. Anticipated council select, we would anticipate the council hopefully be able to make a decision on proposals and selecting a firm at the September 5th meeting. The expected time to complete the process is 90 to 120 days. The budget 2023 outlay will be used for the expense of this service. So it's, the services can be acquired within the 2023 budget constraints. The funding source for this particular agenda item is of no financial impact, and the request that we would ask maybe the council would consider tonight is consider a motion requesting Dwayne Kleinsasser appear before the Common Council at the regularly scheduled meeting on September 5th, 2023 at 5:30, no, that'd be at 6:30 p.m., 18:30. We've got a military person in the house. 18:30 to discuss possible remedies.
Thank you, Mr. Glassbrenner. Questions or comments for Jason? And you mentioned infill housing. I believe later on the agenda is an offer to purchase a lot to provide a house.
Right, yep, exactly. So 460 West First Street, we'll discuss that agenda.
We will discuss it later. And good detail of recounting of what's been going on with Panorama Estates. You know, the city's been in touch with multiple builders. One significant change from when I first became mayor, for example, is we had great difficulty getting builders to return calls, schedule appointments. I don't know that they were taking Richland Center seriously. In fact, I can tell you they were not. And now that's not true. The issue is not finding builders. There are multiple builders interested in the community. Some of them are local. Some of them are regional. The snag is the cost. Every project comes back the way Jason described it. And with interest rates up after inflation had already risen the rest of the cost, driven the rest of the cost higher. Now the cost of the money followed that, and it's the challenge now is finding the affordable project. So, anybody else with comments on where we're at with housing?
Mr. Mayor, one thing that I'd add is that, so another reason for the necessary, very in-depth financial planning, of course, is Mr. Raisler was here earlier and presented. And like the mayor indicated, those costs are usually expected to be upon the developer, but there are other things that take place around substantial development in the city that aren't typically the developer's responsibility. So an example of that would be what happens to traffic on Highway 14 at the intersection of Pleasant Valley Road and 14, where there's already a lot of congestion right there in front of Culver's. That's not the hospital development's responsibility to figure out, that's the municipalities. So that's an example of why we really need to be looking long-term ahead. Again, all levels of housing are needed. And even for the attraction of additional businesses and or let's say manufacturers in our industrial park, most of them are looking for development incentive as well. So I often will receive requests for proposals from firms that are looking to relocate from across the country into the Midwest, and they are all looking for very specific packages tailored to them. That requires a substantial amount of municipal investment. So I think this is a great process we're about to undertake, and it's not just because of housing. There are a number of opportunities before Richland Center, but we're going to have to be fairly aggressive and fairly strategic, tactical with the money resources that we have.
Just a couple other points that I get asked about consistently. People ask me if the existing hospital property will have housing developed on it once that hospital is no longer in use. And as you heard earlier tonight when Mr. Racer was asked what will become of the existing hospital building, well, they don't know, and as long as they don't know, we don't know. It definitely is residential neighborhood, so it has our attention, but at this point, the hospital is not even prepared to discuss that. We simply don't know. I get asked about the campus property now, what will become of that? Will there ever be homes out there? And the truth is, last night was the first meeting of the county's new ad hoc committee to deal with the campus. So they're just beginning their process. And it's going to be interesting there, and what a chance for collaboration with no choice. 130 acres owned by the county exists in the city. So any proposal that might come forward from the county will have to be reviewed by the city, by the Plan Commission most likely, and possibly zoning. And I don't know what's going to happen out there. I don't know what they'll propose or when they'll be ready to do it, but we'll be involved at some point. It can't be avoided. I don't know what to think of that. So to answer those two right now, there's two big I don't knows. All right, anything further on housing? Okay. All right, next on the agenda, item 6.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
Was there any consideration to the request for consideration on that sheet?
No.
So I was going to ask that, didn't we request previously that he come to a meeting?
Oh, that, yeah. We did. Okay, so Ashley's heard this. I don't know if Jason did or not. Mr. Kleinsusser is more than willing to come. He will not come without his attorney. His attorney couldn't be here tonight. So, yeah, I mean, he knows. I spoke to him briefly yesterday. He intends to be at a council meeting. He's got a couple things he wants to discuss. I would imagine Ashley will hear from him shortly. It's basically where it's been. He's still trying to find funding, and he will be here. He will not come without his attorney, who could not be here tonight. Okay, so at this point, I mean, he's already been told. He hasn't been asked. He's been told that he'll be here. I believe correspondence was sent to him by the city attorney, correct? Okay, the last thing I heard from Mr. Kleinsusser was that he would like our attorney to speak to his attorney and schedule him down here. That was yesterday. So I don't know if we need another. I mean, he's already been told he will. Is there a reason to?
Perhaps Chris could speak about this as far as for future purposes, if it would be in our interest to make that a formal motion.
I know I've sent them 2 notices. I don't know if there was a dispute about the first one, but so far we're falling in line with the developer's agreement. Do we need to do a third? It's optional. I don't think I can send a subpoena to them, no.
Okay.
What if I could?
Okay, so at this point, notice was sent twice?
Correct.
And I did hear from him yesterday, briefly. We will again this week, I'm sure, to get him scheduled down here. His simple concern was to not come out here without his lawyer. He could not make tonight's meeting. That's as much information as I have. Do you have a recommendation on this? Is there a reason to?
without much thought to it. I mean, if you guys authorize it, it's not a problem. Who's going to call them, or I can send them another letter, but it would just be resending, I think, essentially an identical letter, and that's fine. It's not much work.
No, I'm sure we could send him a letter. I guess we're sending the same letter he's already got that he's acknowledged receiving. If you folks want to recommend or make a motion to have the city attorney contact Mr. Kleinsasser again, we can do that.
If that keeps it on the books and keeps it rolling, I would make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
A motion from Ms. Walters and a second from Mr. Cairns. Any discussion? All right, Aaron, let's have a roll call.
Walters?
Aye.
Melby?
Aye.
Downs?
Aye.
Cairns?
Aye.
Hoppenjohn?
Aye.
Tepley?
Aye.
McCarthy?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, item 6, temporary Class B picnic license application for 80 German Warehouse Conservancy at 177 East Hazeltown on September 16th.
Public safety met last night. Several things on the agenda. The first would be the temporary Class B picnic license for the 80 German Warehouse Conservancy for September 16th for, I believe, the trivia event. Is that correct, Jim? They've had several of these in the past without any issues. So I will make a motion to grant that license.
Okay.
Motion from Mr. Melby. Was that Mr. Cairns on the second? Mr. Downs on the second. All right. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving temporary Class B picnic license application for AD German Warehouse Conservancy at 177 East Hazeltine on September 16, 2023, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
All right, on to the application for tobacco license for Richland Smokes LLC at 165 Richland Square. I will make a motion to approve the tobacco license.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Melby. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Downs. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving tobacco license application for Richland Smokes LLC at 165 Richland Square, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
On to a Class B beer and Class C wine license application for Pine River Smoke at 249 West Court Street, Doug Cradwell, agent. I will make a motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Melby. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Downs. Hello, Mr. Cradwell. How are you this evening?
Good.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on a Class B and C wine, beer and wine license application for Pine River Smoke?
I just have a quick question. It doesn't have to do with him specifically, but didn't we talk at a previous meeting, is this one of the licenses that we're only allowed to do so many of?
It is. We had one returned.
Oh, okay.
We had one returned.
Okay.
I believe the movie theaters surrendered their license, correct?
The movie theater had a Class B beer license.
Right. And they don't anymore?
They do not anymore.
Okay.
This, yeah. This doesn't affect, yeah, they're essentially swapping, I guess.
Okay, that's what I wanted to check, because I thought when we had discussed this, some of these previously, it was, there were certain licenses we were capped at, and we had met that, so I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, any discussion on the application from Pine River Smoke Company?
So just a quick question. So does this, seeing we have a cap, where are we as far as available? Is this it?
I don't know without looking.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving Class B and C beer and wine license for Pine River Smoke Company at 249 West Court Street, Douglas Cradwell, agent, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. When will you be opening, sir?
Well, as we speak, Thursday, Friday, Ash Creek will be in to do the final plumbing in the kitchen. And if I said in 4 days afterwards I'd be lying, but it'll be soon enough. So.
Okay.
The other thing that's happening is the concrete up front of the building on the sidewalk, especially that drain pipe that comes out, it has to be replaced beforehand. And this phone call I just got today, didn't mean to interrupt the meeting with the concrete guy that's supposed to be doing it this week. And at that time, then we'll put the handicap ramp in that we are required to have. I do have some questions about that because of other places in town.
Okay, do me a favor. I can't do it, it's not on the agenda, but stay after.
Okay.
Okay.
Other than that, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Melby.
All right, on to number 9, Class B beer and Class B liquor license application for TKO Barbecue Bar and Grill LLC, Tim Holman, agent. I think everybody else got something in the packet as well. I would make a motion to approve that license.
Second. Okay, this is the Class G beer and liquor license for TKO Barbecue Bar and Grill LLC, 165 West Court, Tim Holman, agent. We just had a motion by Mr. Melby. Second, I believe, was Mr. Downs, correct?
Yes.
Okay. This is the location that until now has been the press box, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna stop a minute here and make sure everyone has had a chance to look at what's in their packet. And if there is discussion, go ahead.
I believe Mr. Joyce has some information on this. You got this afternoon?
Yes, so Mr. Oman does have a loan with the city that is outstanding. There's information in your packet regarding that. Public Safety last night looked at that. Tim talked a bit about repayment of the loan. Also, the background check that was discussed last night as well, I think that was satisfied by the committee. So what's before you are the items related to the loan, repayment, some options potentially, if you so choose to allow that payment either as a contingent of the license, either in full, getting current, or even paying off the principal with the city potentially forgiving the interest on that. So there are options here. I did talk to Tim today. He indicated his desire to just pay off what is owed. I don't know if your thought has changed at all on that.
Well, I mean, I would expect anybody to forgive anything for my irresponsibility or whatever you want to call it.
Do you want to get him the microphone? Sure. Let's do that.
I don't want it.
I know. You're not the first one who said that, Tim.
So at this time, I'd like to figure out a balloon payment. The building that I'm purchasing is on a lease with a balloon payment in 1 year due to the interest rates, obviously. Hopefully that they fall, and that's how I'm doing it. And if it doesn't fall, I'll do a balloon payment and pay everybody off at the same time. And I mean, there is money's coming in the near future, but I can't give a date.
Okay. So, Council Tim's right there. He's got the microphone. Do you have questions or comments? And if you don't, we have a motion in the second. It's yours to decide.
So you're thinking that you could have this paid off, you're thinking within a year?
Yes.
Are you able to pay any of it up front?
Yeah.
Just trying to work out some math here. Would it be more feasible to do a percentage up front, and then you would have the next year to pay off the balance, or to set up a payment schedule where you would make a set payment each month, and then at the end of that year, do a balloon payment of the
Right, that's
remainder.
what I'll do, yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately, I think if you're looking at allowing them to pay off the principal, one of the biggest issues, if you can do it within the year, would be whether or not you guys would forget the interest. I think Aaron was saying that is within the city's purview. It is a loan owed to us, so.
Okay, Mr. Owen has stated that you could pay the loan within the next year, yeah? Willing to make some of the payment now. Options, I guess it's open to the council to choose if that's acceptable. And as Mr. McGowan just stated, with or without interest in there, as you can see in your packet. Well, they're considering that, Mr. Omen, at this point, assuming that this all gets approved, when are you intending to open your business?
Tomorrow.
Are you right? Okay.
No pressure.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, just a question. So when Melanie had asked if you could do an upfront payment, do you have an idea of that amount that you could do upfront? Right now, or?
I can do something as of tomorrow. I can't give you an exact
Right.
number without
Okay.
figuring out exactly what, for sure I can do something. Probably, I can't give you a number, 5,000 something, I don't know. I mean, I can't give you an exact number without going through my books.
I would say the motivation would probably be greater to get it paid off in a year if the interest was forgiven, if that's an option. It's something to consider anyway. And if it's not paid off in a year.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'll provide a copy of the code, but subsection 10 of 39909 basically says you can put a condition on renewing the license. So if you gave him a year to pay it and he didn't pay it as a condition of granting the license and he didn't pay it, then you would not renew. Essentially, as counsel, that's what I would advise.
So then just one more question. At the committee level, we're looking at 33909, processing of application on number 4. That was discussed in committee. Felt
It was, we had an in-depth discussion with Tim and the police chief, and Aaron was involved, and
okay.
it was discussed.
Okay, thank you.
The chief said he had no issues.
Okay, thank you.
One second. Okay, any questions or comments for Mr. Omen? Right, and as you stated, Police Chief Billy Jones had no issue with this?
Correct.
Okay, so I guess my question is, can I have that? My question is, what would how would the council like to structure the repayment of the loan?
I guess I would be on board with Mr. McGow's suggestion that if the loan wasn't repaid within a year, we could just simply non-renew the license.
Can I add that to your motion, sir?
I just meant to.
Okay, please restate that from it. Mr. Joyce will need to record the motion.
I think we're working on it.
Okay.
Yeah, a good faith down payment, perhaps. You working on numbers or?
Well, I was trying to figure out like a real quick like amortization schedule, but without knowing exactly how much he wants to put down. So you said 5,000, so let's just say, could you make a $5,000 payment by the end of August towards that? I mean, you could pay more, minimum, and then we could either establish a payment per month, you know, $1,000, $1,500, something like that, and then at the end of the year, then you would make that final balloon payment. Makes that, I'm just running like really rough numbers here. So if you did, say, $5,000 down, $1,500 a month after that, for the next, so $5,000 for your first month, $1,500 after that.
I'm not sure what the conversation is over here, but they might have something to add.
Okay. That would leave you a balloon payment of a little over $16,000 at this time next year, which you can always pay off sooner. So like I said, I'm just throwing together some rough numbers with what I have in front of me. And that would be just the principal. I did not include the interest in it. I don't know.
Okay. Did you have something to add? I heard a conversation over there. Did you guys have something to add?
No. I mean,
I just don't know if you guys want to set like a fixed monthly payment that you
How much
want,
are your average
or we
charges?
just put it as pay it off in the next year.
I'm going to ask a question. Mr. Ullman, can I ask you when you think you'll be able to pay this in full? Do you know when you'll be able to do that?
A date?
Yeah,
Absolutely not. It'll be within a year, I'm sure.
I understand what you're telling me. I understand what you're telling me.
Yeah.
I don't, okay.
are you making this for 20 years? When you're doing
1
it?
year.
Just 1 year, but how long are you amortizing?
So I basically just set it up that so there's no interest. So if his principal payoff is the $37,566.12, if he can pay $5,000 this month, and then we set a set payment of, say, on that remaining balance of the $32,566.12 at $1,500 a month for the following 11 months, then that would give him a balloon payment of a little over $16,000 this time next year to pay off the principal. I don't know if that is doable. I'm just, like I said, I'm just throwing together some numbers. But then again, you have the option at any time where you're like, hey, I know you guys only want me to pay this much a month. You said I could pay this much, but here's another $5,000. Or my business has been really profitable. By December, you're like, here's the whole thing. So no penalty for early payment. Just to add clarification, license renewal would be in June, right? Or is it? So
Yeah, the license would expire June 30th.
So we would need to alter that. Correct. Okay.
Would this be cleaner just to say it'll be paid off by June 30th of next year?
And if you wanted like $5,000 within the next 7 days or something, put that in there.
Is that doable?
Okay. So I will,
Go ahead. It just
Okay.
it depends on how nitty gritty you want to get, like if you want to actually have a payment schedule to get it paid off, or if it's just any time within the next year, so it could be next month or it could be next June before a payment would have to be made again, so.
anybody else have any thoughts on this? Preference one way or the other?
Maybe if you just put something in there that a payment schedule will be agreed upon between parties or something to that effect. I mean, we have a couple of options on this paper, so I don't know if that would be.
I have a question. And maybe Chris might be good. If this is a 30-year loan, can the city mandate that it get paid off? Or can we just mandate him to get current? Because let's say that.
To get current.
But if we're forgiving interest, we can.
That's right.
No, we're giving them a good deal, I think. But yeah, ultimately, it would be get current, but we're asking them to pay the entire principal and forgiving the interest. So those are kind of the options.
What's the payment set at right now for that 30 years?
That's a good question.
Ballpark. Do you have a ballpark of what it would be to get? So to get current, it's the $25,625.60, and that's by August. That's to achieve it by August 23rd to be current, correct? Or 2023, I'm sorry.
That's to get current as of this month. That would need to be the payment. If he was to write a check today, that's what it would be to get current to August of 2023. And then would have that remaining $21,505, which includes the interest. I don't know what the schedule would be.
But to forgive the interest, he would have to pay it in full. Correct.
Sure.
Yes.
Within a year? Is that what you're saying?
By June 30th.
Well, yeah, when his license expires, would expire June 30th, correct?
Yes.
So by that point for renewal. Get over that?
Say that.
All right. So I will amend my motion to approve the Class B beer and Class B liquor license for TKO Barbecue Bar and Grill LLC, Tim Omen agent. We would say contingent on.
Conditioned.
Go ahead.
Conditioned.
Conditioned on the payment of $5,000 within 7 days. And the remainder of the principal balance to be paid off by June 30th of 2024.
Okay, we have, Mr. Milby has amended his motion. Mr. Downs, second that?
Yes.
Okay, we have the motion and the second. Now, from this point, any further discussion? Okay, we'll need a roll call, Aaron.
Can I just repeat it back?
Yeah, please.
All right, motion to approve the Class B beer and Class B liquor license for Tim Omen, agent, conditioned on an initial payment of $5,000 within 7 days, and the remaining principal be paid by June 30th, 2024.
With interest forgiven. I mean, I guess that's implied, but.
Yeah, let's take it a step further. So if he meets that, then the interest would be forgiven, would not pay it further. If he does not pay, then he has not met his condition and we would not renew.
Yeah.
Are we adding that to the motion?
I would like to, sure.
Okay, hold on.
Amend my amendment.
We need to let Mr. Joyce get that.
Say it in
You better,
plain
Miguel, Mr. Miguel, you better repeat that for Aaron.
Yeah.
So if he pays within that period of time, then the interest is forgiven. If he does not pay, then his renewal application is to be denied.
Okay,
Did you get that, Aaron?
I did.
Mr. Melby, are you amending your motion to include the language from Mr. McGowan?
I believe at this point I'm amending my amendment, but yes.
Okay, Mr. Downs, you're still, your second?
Yep.
Okay, any discussion from this point? Okay, Aaron, we'll need a roll call vote.
Okay, Alderperson Melby.
Aye.
Downs.
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Hoppenjohn.
Aye.
Tepley.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
And so before we proceed, I would like to congratulate Mr. Cradwell and Mr. Omen. And you're really going to be open tomorrow?
If you let me go.
All right, well, honestly, congratulations to both of you, and welcome to Richland Center as business owners, guys. All right, good luck to both of you. Okay, yeah. Okay,
I think it's still me.
it is still you. I was gonna say, you're still
This
going.
might be the last one. All right. We are looking at amending ordinance 101.04 to add a stop sign at Sheldon and Seminary Streets. Beyond Sheldon Street, north and south would have stop signs. This is due to requests to Mr. Chambers, who's not here tonight, and his personal observations of several near-miss accidents and a crash that happened recently, and a large amount of children in the neighborhood. So I will make a motion amending 101.04 to add a stop sign on Sheldon at Seminary.
I'm gonna ask a question just so I know, which direction? Where are we putting?
The stop signs will be
Sheldon.
facing north and south. Correct.
North and south, okay, got it. Thank you. We have a motion from Mr. Melby. Is there a second? Yeah.
Second. I believe you want to suspend the rules, waive the reading.
I don't know if I do, Aaron. I think I want you to read it.
You would be reading it.
Okay. Then I will make a motion to suspend the rules, because apparently this ordinance lists every stop sign in the city of Richland.
It would, so.
That's why we are amending this ordinance.
Take a drink of water, Kevin. Ready, set?
I think you've heard enough from me tonight.
Okay, so you are suspending the rules, waiving the readings, and making this motion?
That is correct.
Okay, and second from Mr. Downs. Any discussion? Mr. Joyce, may we have a roll call vote?
Alderperson Downs.
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Hoppenjohn.
Aye.
Tepley.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Melby.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next on the agenda, Finance Committee recommendations, Mr. Ryan Cairns.
Item 11, consider offer to purchase 460 West First Street. We discussed this at Finance prior to council tonight, and Jason's got a lot more information on it. He touched on it on a little bit in his report. But 460 West First, Jason's had it advertised and has an offer. I'll let you discuss after my motion would be to authorize the city administrator and economic development director to finalize the development agreement and execute the sale of 460 West First Street.
Motion from Mr. Cairns. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms.
Do you need a
Walters.
dollar amount, Ryan?
What was that?
Do you need a dollar amount, Ryan? Or no?
From
I'm just asking because we put a dollar amount on it, finance.
I believe the dollar amount was 5,000,
Minimum of 5,000.
but we heard that it was gonna get like way more than that, right? Yeah, 5,000, thank you.
I'll amend my second as well.
We have the motion and the second. Is there any discussion? Do we have any idea who it is who might be making this offer to purchase that lot on First Street?
You want to say anything, or you want me to say? So there's been a group of current business owners in the community, including Wallace Electric, Whispering Pines Construction, and Nadles Construction, who have formed a new business partnership for the purpose of trying to bring a new spec home to our community. So it's a partnership of several business owners that we have in the community.
Does that include Mr. Scotty Wallace?
It does.
All right. Scotty, did you have anything you want to say to the council?
Well, we've been, I was on council, of course, and we've been kind of throwing this idea around, and I know the housing issue in town. And I know that there's been a few houses taken down. We got a bunch of vacant lots. And we was just throwing the idea out there, maybe we should start putting some houses on those vacant lots, and that'd help us out, of course, and it'd help the city out, maybe bring somebody new in town to spend their money, tax revenue, and Dave or whoever's taking over is not gonna have to mow the yard, it's just sitting there vacant, so. So that's the plan, we wanna build a few spec homes on some vacant properties around town. Hopefully it helps everybody.
Any questions or comments from Mr. Wallace? Okay, we've got the motion and the second. Any further discussion? And Aaron will need a roll call vote.
Alderperson Cairns.
Aye.
Hoppenjohn.
Aye.
Tepley.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Melby.
Aye.
Downs.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 12, consider reallocation of funds from police outlay in 2023 budget to purchase police tasers. At Finance, Police Chief Billy Jones went over what he has found and what he's wanting to purchase for the police department. And my motion would be to authorize the purchase of T10 taser bundles from Axon Enterprise at a cost not to exceed $31,837.60 as quoted with funds from the police outlet.
We have a motion from Mr. Cairns. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ms. Tepley. Any discussion? Hearing none, Aaron will need a roll call vote, please.
Alderperson Hoppenjohn.
Aye.
Tepley.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Melby.
Aye.
Downs.
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 13, consider request to authorize an application for the U.S. Bank NASPO commercial card program. At Finance, we discussed the city's credit card, and this program is available to municipalities. The county already uses it, and you can see all the details in your attachment. My motion would be to authorize the administrator to execute the application process necessary for the enrollment in U.S. Bank's NASPO program.
Motion from Mr. Cairns. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Downs. Is there discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Joyce will need a roll call vote, please.
Alderperson Tepley.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Melby.
Aye.
Downs.
Aye.
Cairns.
Aye.
Hoppenjohn.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 14, consider request to authorize hotel feasibility study. The last couple hundred pages of your packet is the hotel feasibility study. We thoroughly discussed this in Finance. I'm gonna make my motion and then let Ashley or Jason touch on this. Motion would be to authorize hotel feasibility study of up to $14,000 using ARPA funds.
Motion for Mr. Cairns. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second from Ms. Tepley. Is there discussion? Mr. Glassbrenner or Ms.
I'll
Oliphant?
go over it. As Jason's reported previously, the EPA has been working with the City of Richland Center, engaging in studies, assessments of potential redevelopment, and as part of that, hotel development has been reviewed. The preliminary information we've received from the EPA is that a hotel would be appropriate and advantageous to the city. But however, in order to take any sort of steps beyond that, a hotel feasibility study is required. This will collect the necessary data points that can be used for potential hotel chains or even an independent entrepreneur that would like to start a hotel, but without the information we cannot ascertain with some definitive confidence that an additional hotel would be feasible Furthermore, as you're aware, recently one hotel of the two that the city has been transitioned to a different use rather than hotel, so we've reduced the number of available rooms that the community has. Our tourism coordinator has said on multiple occasions, to include the last council meeting, that there is a need for additional lodging options within the city. There's some data about occupancy and the lodging options we have available. But as I stated, in order to get the necessary data to move this project forward, if it's to be moved forward, and provide the data to any possible interested parties, we need to execute the study. So the request is to allow us to do so.
Questions or comments?
Do we just have one hotel right now?
At this point, that is correct. Okay, any further discussion, questions or comments? All right, we've got the motion and the second. We'll need a roll call vote.
I forget where I left off. So, Alderperson Walters?
Aye.
Melby?
Aye.
Downs?
Aye.
Cairns?
Aye.
Hoppenjohn?
Aye.
Tepley?
Aye.
McCarthy?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next on the agenda, appointments to committees, commissions, boards, and confirm appointments. And there is an appointment tonight to the library board, Ms. Candace Fagerland, who is with us this evening. If anyone has any questions for her, she would be more than happy to answer those. If there are no questions or comments for Ms. Fagerland or from Ms. Fagerland, we'll entertain a motion to approve her to the library board.
I'll make that motion to approve.
Second.
Motion from Karen Tepley, second by Steve Downs. Any discussion? All in favor of approving Ms. Candace Fagerland as a member of our library board, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm going to hear from your husband in the morning. Motion is carried. All right, congratulations. Okay.
Thanks.
So not on, and we handle public comment, that's done. Not on the agenda, but I've been asked to make an announcement tonight. Seated to my left is our city attorney, Mr. Chris McGow. If anyone does not know this, Mr. McGow is a native of Mobile, Alabama. And in the near future, Mr. McGow will be relocating home to Mobile, Alabama. Chris has gotten a tremendous opportunity, business opportunity back home with family and people he knows well. I don't blame him. It's a tremendous opportunity. When he told me on the phone, I said, you'd be a fool not to go home. And so he will. So Chris and I have not settled yet on his final date as city attorney. It will be in the next month or two. And so there will be, I believe, at the September meeting, a nomination for a new city attorney. And if either the administrator or any of the alderpersons would like to discuss that with me after the meeting, I'd be happy to do that. But at this point, I really just wanted to personally thank Chris for his service to the city and his friendship as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's bittersweet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going home to take Dad's place in the construction company.
that's right.
All right.
Yeah,
Business you grew up around.
correct.
Right back home.
Yeah.
Feeling good about that.
I am. But I will also miss Richland Center.
Well, what we'll want, of course, it does get colder here in the winter than it does where you're going. And we're all going to want your street address in Mobile in case anyone would like to sort of stay for a month.
Now you got a friend in the south near the beach.
Are you gonna keep your winter jacket though, in case
Oh,
you
yeah.
come back and visit?
Hey, cold is 50 degrees down there, so I'll be wearing it in 50-degree weather.
So the truth, Chris, is that I'm sure it's fair to say we'll miss you, but whether or not that's true, I'll miss you.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. No, but for you, I don't have this job.
I mean, I'm not going to leave that. I just want you to know where I'm at on this. I mean, one of the first things I did as mayor was to call you and see if you had interest in serving the city as a city attorney, and it's been a great relationship. You've helped the city advance and grow, and that's beyond question. So thanks for your service.
Oh, thank you for having me.
When are you going home? You don't know yet, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, right.
But, yeah, just before winter, how about that?
How'd you decide that? Okay. All right, so I just, yeah, I just kind of thought everybody should know that, and I'm sure Chris will stick around after. Okay, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Tonight's meeting is adjourned. Thank you.